Welcome back into the GSMC Sports Podcast, and we are now going to be shifting gears, and we're going to be closing out the show with some thoughts on the MLB. It is officially All-Star, the All-Star break. We had a number of things. We had the draft last night. We had the Rising Stars game take place yesterday afternoon. So already sort of into the thick of it. But in terms of pro-ready events as well, we have the Home Run Derby that is taking place tonight. So the participants there in order of betting odds. Pete Alonso is the favorite, followed up by Marcell Ozuna and Bobby Witt Jr., who are both tied for second. Gunnar Henderson, Adolis Garcia, Teoscar Hernandez, Jose Ramirez, and Alec Bohm. So we do have some changes to the format with the Home Run Derby this upcoming year. They did away with the bracket-style head-to-heads in the first couple rounds, which personally I am a huge fan of. Now, watching two of the MLB's best face off against one another is a lot of fun, absolutely. But I didn't love how, kind of the luck of the draw sometimes with the seeding where you could have, in theory at least, the second best score in the first round, and you could have been eliminated because you went up against the number one option. For all my fantasy football, or you can say fantasy baseball fans out there as well, I feel like, we've all sort of experienced those types of things where you finish second in the league in scoring, but you just got dealt a bad hand there. I just felt like there was a little bit too much luck that was tied into that. So I like that they're going back to just the 8 batters hitting. The top 4 performers go on to advance to the semifinals, and then, of course, from there, final 2 to the finals. But another change is that there now isn't an unlimited attempts in a given time period for each round. There is a maximum number of pitches that you can hit in the first two, in all the rounds here. It's a maximum of 40 pitches in the first 2 rounds, and then a max of 27 pitches in the finals. There, it's either you hit those or your clock runs out. In the first 2 rounds, it's 3-minute timers. The finals, it is 2 minutes. I'm curious to see whether or not it does have any impact on fatigue in terms of making things easier for players, knowing that it's not just rushing in as many swings as possible, that there is actually a cap at some point along the lines. And again, I'm just wondering if there is going to be any strategic changes from some of these, players in the event of trying to, pace themselves maybe a little bit more than the rush that we've seen in the past. But as for my predictions for this event, I would probably lean Gunnar Henderson. He was pretty due. He just hit a home run yesterday that I believe put them at 28. Put him at 28 home runs on the year. I do feel like a lot of the times this event can favor the younger players who have more stamina. Now, the fact that there are these rules in place as well that mean that they can't overexert themselves maybe in a first round, I think could actually go to the benefit of Gunnar Henderson. Throw Bobby Witt Jr. in that conversation as well. Again, this is all speculation. It might not end up having the rule changes, that is, might not end up having that big of an impact on the event. But I'm just trying to think out the different angles here of what impact the rules could have prior to, so we'll see about that. Bobby Witt Jr. is definitely in that conversation as well, as home run numbers aren't quite as high, but I believe he has the highest average exit velocity out of all of the participants, so Bobby Witt Jr. is probably a pretty good bet as well. He is sitting at plus 425 is what I last looked at on DraftKings for that. Gunnar Henderson is a little bit behind that. Gunnar is at, the odds since I last looked at this have changed, where Gunnar has actually moved up to tie with Ozuna and Bobby Witt Jr. So seems like there might be some action on Henderson for tonight's home run derby. But I do also have a couple other names that I think are definitely in play. You have to mention Pete Alonso who is the favorite for this event at plus 320. He has 2 titles to his name already. He's looking to tie Ken Griffey Jr. for the most home run derby titles in MLB history. So that is definitely a big headline to tune into. I think that Adolis Garcia has some sneaky interesting value sitting at plus 600. I know he's not having the ideal season for what his own expectations, and I'm sure Rangers fans were expecting coming into the year, but at the same time, he can still smack the long ball, and maybe he has a little bit of the hometown juice to him that could help him out. And then the last thing I'll say here, for whatever it's worth, is that Marcell Ozuna is probably, he's a really good candidate for this based off of how good of a player he is. But also the fact that he is probably the league's least favorable, him winning is the league's least favorable outcome. I could see that happening just out of almost the irony of it. Making the MLB pay a little bit maybe for even putting him in this event. But let me know who you are picking in the comment section. But the All-Star game, looking at a couple things here, the American League, as I came into this at least, was favored. It does seem to be that way. Their odds actually improved. They were minus 120 when I first put notes, but during the show just about 40 minutes ago, they did announce that Corbin Burnes is going to be starting the game. Burnes, of course, the ace for the Baltimore Orioles, so he is going to be facing off against Paul Skeens in the National League. I think that all things considered, a very solid, top 2 starters for each of these teams, and should be a really fun display there. When you're looking at MVP odds for this event, Aaron Judge is the favorite at plus 800. Some names behind him, of course, Shohei Ohtani in the conversation, Juan Soto, Gunnar Henderson, Bryce Harper, Marcell Ozuna, Bobby Witt Jr., Adley Rutschman. I feel like the All-Star game can be a little bit of a crapshoot sometimes, so I definitely would not listen to myself in terms of betting advice on this event for the MVP, but I would probably lean with Shohei Ohtani if you think the National League is going to win. Clearly the best player there. He was in a little bit of a cold streak for a bit there, going back to the Phillies series and then headed into the weekend where the Dodgers faced off. I was against the Tigers, if I am not mistaken, but I think he was able to go yard as well, at least once during that series, and we'll see whether or not he is, again, it's the All-Star game, so definitely a different intensity, but I feel like maybe he has lost some of that cold streak a little bit, and we will see there. But if you're going to pick somebody from the American League, I feel like this might be the All-Star game of the future, kind of, because we have Paul Skeens, who has emerged as this, ace, a generational talent there, that he's obviously a headliner. You have names like Elly De La Cruz and Fernando Tatis. If you think the American League is going to win, I would probably lean with one of the Orioles, Gunnar Henderson or Adley Rutschman. I think either one of them are great candidates to win this. Again, I feel like it's, you're kind of just throwing a dart at a board when you're talking about All-Star Game MVP. You have no idea how long any of them are even going to play. But I could definitely see Rutschman, going yard in this event and earning some honors there, and maybe just the bias of what the overall game feels like and having these young stars could sway in the direction of one of the Orioles. I was listing young stars, Bobby Witt Jr. You can put into that conversation as well, but Bobby Witt also isn't starting this game, so I'd probably lean Gunnar over him because of that fact. But again, let me know who you are thinking of going for here in terms of the All-Star Game MVP. But we are going to be taking our final break of the show now, and when we come back on the other side, we're going to quickly wrap up here by talking about my Boston Red Sox a little bit and their series win against the Kansas City Royals to extend their lead for that last wild card spot a little bit. So we are going to be diving into that. But first, a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.